Welcome in, everyone, to the Unnamed Fantasy Football Show. It's the finale here. Lisa Matthews, Zach Galia, and Felipe Corral here with you. And guys, sadly, it's time. Sadly for me, it's time to crown the champion.
The champ is here.
Yeah, he is here. He's right here. Felipe Corral, Fresh Prince of Air Raid. You take the crown.
Champ. I mean, for the next couple of weeks, I want to be referred to as champ.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, champ?
All right.
You know, especially, I mean, not just that I won, but the fashion in which I won.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But let's first talk about what you want. I mean, you haven't really.
That's true.
I had like a whole list of things. I wanted like food. I wanted this cool illustration graphic.
I mean, I'm a big fan of, and this is a shout out, Crumble.
Okay.
Some Crumble cookies. I mean,
can
one or
help you.
two. I mean, two would be ideal. But if I get one Crumble cookie, they're so delicious. Some of the best cookies in town.
From an influencer would be good.
I don't know who you're talking about. But yes, we can probably make that happen. Crumble, shout out. And then what else do you want? Is that it?
That
Just all
as
the
long
glory?
as if you guys can make it like read champ on the cookie, like in the middle, you know,
This is going to pain me.
if that's possible, I'd be happy with just
That
you know
would be
being
good.
referred to as champ for at least 1 week, and champ on a Crumble cookie in the middle.
Okay.
And I'll post it. You know, free advertising.
We'll,
right
we'll have
there.
to get you like a little name tag.
Exactly.
Instead
You know,
of it
name
saying
tag.
Felipe, it'll say champ.
I think we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Or we need the, the belt, the wrestling belt we talked about,
I
just
know.
the champion each year. Hopefully next year I'll have another shot at it. We will see. But I had no shot actually on on the finale for us, a championship matchup. It was 170 to 105, the final score between us two. And I think at one point, Zach can attest to this, he was sitting next to me and I was freaking out all Sunday. I only had two players, granted. No, I had my defense playing and I had Moore playing. And then he was out with a concussion after scoring.
Yeah, he had like
point.
1 point.
Yeah, hope he's well.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm just like,
Yeah,
I just knew I didn't have a chance because it was like 8 to 101 at that point.
We were waiting for the game to start in Seattle in the press box, and she keeps looking at it, and it was like at one point it was literally like 102 to like 5, and we're like, I don't know if you're coming back from this.
And and I had multiple guys still not in game action. I had obviously Russell. We were waiting for the game to start, so I had Wilson, who always puts up a good amount of points. I'm like, okay, maybe Wilson. I don't know. Elliott. I had picked up D. Washington because I wanted to play around a little bit with my lineup, which it really didn't affect anything. I ended up
decided to play around with your lineup the last game.
Well, you know what? I ended up sitting Woods, but it wouldn't have helped me anyways.
He
because
went off for like 21.
He did, and so I was sitting there actually Saturday night watching. I'm like, oh my god, if this messes me up. But Washington ended up putting up some good amount of points, 18 for the Raiders. So. Yeah, it wasn't my day. And, I made a strong run in the playoffs. I didn't deserve to be there, but I was there.
You made the most of it.
Yeah, kind of like the NFC East, whoever makes it, you're just like, well, he's there. So it was one of those situations. But, we'll see next time. I don't know.
I mean, to your credit, again, thanks to Zach, the commissioner, making it like everyone makes the playoffs type of deal.
Yeah.
I mean, with the 4-8 record, the fact that you made it that far.
Right.
I mean, when you saw the matchup,
counted.
when you saw the matchup and you saw you were playing against Christian McCaffrey, I mean,
I
you
just
had to
knew.
have some doubt.
32
like,
points
shoot.
for him. Well, not only that, Christian McCaffrey went off for you. I'm looking at the lineup right now. Andrews, D. Freeman. I mean, I just kept seeing these points pile up, and I'm like, each guy needs to score at least over 30 points for me just to have a chance.
I mean, anytime. Think about it. And this is a genuine question. When's the last time you heard of a running back have 15 catches on 15 targets? I mean, it's just crazy what this dude's done. He's had more receiving yards than rushing yards in the past 6 games. So it's just from a standard PPR point of view. I thank Zach for making it a PPR league.
Yes.
I mean, whew.
Everyone thanking the commissioner today.
Yeah, why are you giving him? I'm not even. I'm just kidding. No, actually, as we close out this fantasy football season, let's take a look at our MVPs in 2019. Felipe, it's obvious
I think this is an easy one.
Who your MVP is.
Yeah, I mean, look at that.
I mean,
he had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage since like week 15. I mean, that in itself should tell you who my MVP
500,
is.
almost 500 points. Like
yeah.
It's kind of unheard of in fantasy football. I mean,
Here's to hoping I get the number 1 pick
next year.
I
think we know who it would be.
And he wasn't even the number 1
no,
pick.
No, he
That's
wasn't.
the crazy
But
thing. I mean, shout out to Jackson and
Richard took Kamara,
and then Jackson took Saquon, which
number 1.
You know, for the most part of the season, Saquon was kind of injured and flow and everything, but he went off last week. But I mean, with the 3rd pick in the draft to get someone like McCaffrey,
and I mean, in real football wise, like this guy, I don't think he gets enough talk for like the MVP chase or race. I mean, it's crazy that, I mean, his team isn't doing as well as Lamar Jackson's Ravens, but I mean, this guy is, the way he produces week in and week out, whether the team's winning or losing, it's, he's someone that'll probably be in that MVP race for years to come.
14 rushing touchdowns, 4 receiving touchdowns for a total of 448 fantasy points.
Like there's so many receivers that don't even pass 80 catches. I mean, for this dude to have 109 as a running back,
and he'll probably end up having 1,000 by the end of this week. Like he's going to get another 8 or 9 catches,
1,000 receiving yards from a running back. God, gosh.
All right,
what a pick!
Good job, Felipe.
Good job.
All right, your MVP.
My MVP. So mine's a little off the board, but Austin Eckler. He was I took him in the 8th round. I think that was probably 2 or 3 rounds after Melvin Gordon went. But just like it says, he was the 9th ranked player in fantasy football as kind of the change of pace back in LA. So snagging him in the 8th round, 74th overall. I think that was pretty much my pickup. And my running backs, Josh Jacobs had a good year, but he's been banged up as of late. James Conner had kind of a down year. So, Austin Eckler basically leading my backfield when he wasn't even necessarily leading the Chargers backfield, and put up some pretty good points.
9th ranked player in fantasy football, total of 291 points. So I think that would
Did
be
you have Melvin Gordon too?
No.
I thought you, for some reason I thought you had
I can't remember who in our league had.
Someone picked him relatively early too.
Yeah.
It was maybe in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, something like that. And I mean,
that's value. That's called value.
I think I did pretty well.
Yes, you did. Well, mine is a quarterback. I can't recall when I picked him.
I'll look it up for you.
Look it up for me. Thank you so much for that. But when I needed a quarterback, actually, it was Mahomes who was taken early. So I usually pick in like the 5th, 6th, 7th round a quarterback. But Russell Wilson has proven himself all year long, someone that I knew I could get a lot of points each week. I can count on at least 20, except against the Cardinals, which was, ironic. It was an uncharacteristic performance from him, but in real life, fine, because the Cardinals got the win and they shut him down a little bit. So that was good in terms for the Cardinals in real life. But yes, I mean, all year long, I mean, you can look there, 29 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing. I mean, we know what he can do with his feet. And then just 5th ranked player in all of fantasy football. I mean, another quarterback. I mean, between him and Lamar Jackson, obviously Lamar would be the quarterback I'd want over Russell. But, I mean, you can't go wrong with Russell Wilson pick up this season. He's
9th round.
9th round?
84th overall.
Okay.
And 5th rank in fantasy football. That's definitely value right there.
Very high value. So I'm happy with my pick. We'll see next season if I'll stash him. Is this a keeper league?
No.
All right, fine.
He's changing the playoff format as well.
So I'm changing all the rules for next year.
Well, let's look at the Cardinals. And as we look at this season, and it obviously winds down, and just kind of project them moving forward, who kind of just surprised you most as far as fantasy points goes?
I mean, I would say from a Cardinals perspective, it would be Kenyan Drake, because he wasn't even on the team when the season started. So, people who drafted him, maybe not early, but drafted him as a Dolphins running back and kind of disappointed and didn't get much playing time down there. It's, he was probably an early drop, and then people picking him back up. I saw Jackson actually drafted him in like the 9th or 10th round from the Dolphins, and then dropped him and then picked him back up. So I would say he's got to be the surprise on the positive side, just because he wasn't a member of our team when we started. So, and definitely a very positive surprise, because I would say 90% of the stats you're seeing right now were all from Arizona and not from Miami.
And I'm pretty sure he won a lot of people their leaders.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially those last 2 weeks, the semis and the finals. He goes off for a 30-piece in each game. I mean, that's definitely...
Even if you only played him for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Those are the 2 weeks that do it. So
think about, I mean, how many people do you guys genuinely think like kept him throughout the whole season? Like even after he was traded. I mean, I have not heard of anyone that kept Kenyan Drake. I mean, all the talk that I heard throughout the season was, I mean, any Dolphins player aside from Devontae Parker was droppable at some point. So if someone kept them throughout the season, they definitely won, or at least came close to winning their league. So.
Yeah, he definitely was the biggest surprise. And, going forward, we can talk about question marks on this team. Still a question mark because he is a free agent. We don't know, from a Cardinal standpoint, if he will be a Cardinal. But looking at the fantasy standpoint, that could affect, obviously. I mean, I would assume wherever he goes, he will be the RB1 for that team. And then moving forward with the Cardinals, we shall see. And that goes in line with David Johnson. I mean, he's a huge question mark going forward as far as fantasy goes. For me, he was my first-round pick, number 4 overall. I did not pick up Drake when we did sign him because I had just made a trade for Elliott. And so my perception was, okay, I have Aaron Jones, I have Zeke Elliott, I have David Johnson. I have like a 3-headed monster right here that I can kind of play with week to week per matchups. But it didn't work out for me in that way, and it didn't really work out for David Johnson. I kind of perceived him going into the season, why I picked him number 4. Just I thought that he would be utilized much more in this offense, especially in the passing game. We all know what he can do as a mismatch in the passing game. So just so many question marks with this guy. I don't.
Well, and
going
I mean,
forward, fantasy and real life. I mean,
just like we were talking about too, about like Saquon and Alvin Kamara, like. All 3, even David Johnson, like those 3 are super talented, very, very good football players, very good fantasy guys, and this year just wasn't necessarily their year. You get banged up as a running back, and not every team has a Kenyan Drake to rely on, but it's just injuries definitely factor a big part into how these guys do. And just like I was saying, the positive surprise would have been Kenyan Drake, and I would say the somewhat negative surprise would have been David Johnson this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, those first 6 weeks, he was a top 5 back, especially in fantasy football, doing what he does, in the passing game. But as far as Kenyan Drake, you as a Cardinals fan, you're confident what he could do in this system. I mean, he spent, 5-6 games with this team. Think about him going through an offseason, getting a little bit more acclimated with this offense. And if that results in the production he's put up in this past 2 weeks, I mean, that'd be ideal.
Granted, I don't have a super long history of, watching film on Kenyan Drake, but, I feel like he's one of those players that's more valuable in Arizona than he might be somewhere else. Just because, like, example, like Le'Veon Bell, he goes from Pittsburgh where he was a main focus on that offense. The offensive line was great. They knew how to block for him. Goes to New York. It's not quite the same situation. It's going to take him a little bit of time to kind of figure that out. So, I mean, depending on how things go, I think if Kenyan Drake is a Cardinal, I'm drafting him a little bit higher than if he's somewhere else.
It'll be interesting to see exactly where he's drafted. It seems like a good fit, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Lots to unpack here as we move forward. All right. How about the biggest upside? Which player has the biggest upside to you as a Cardinal in fantasy?
I'd say Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
I mean, as a rookie in fantasy football, I mean, you relied on him for those first 10 weeks, which was enough to get you into the playoffs at that point. I know from my perspective, I had him in a couple other leagues, and he put up easy 15, weekend.
How many leagues you in?
I'm in 3. I had Kyler Murray in the other 2. But I mean,
like 10 or 12.
He gave me an easy 15, 16 points a week. I mean, that's easy. That's reliable when it comes to a quarterback in fantasy football. But just from what he's done this year, I mean, especially, again, going back to the past 2 weeks, before he got injured, obviously, in week 16, he has so much upside, so much potential. Some of the plays he was making, he's finally comfortable in Cliff Kingsbury's system. So moving forward, you're just excited to see after an off season, after another, training camp with Cliff Kingsbury, what he can do. I mean, you're seeing what Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, some of these quarterbacks are in their second and third year in the NFL, what they're producing, at this level. So you have to be excited.
And I mean, he ended up being the 15th ranked player in all of fantasy football, and that was after a couple down weeks and then bouncing back the last two. But he had a good quote this week in his press conference, just talking about, I think it was Kyle asked him about, Lamar Jackson taking a big leap in his second year. Pat Mahomes did the same thing. Do you see that kind of building through? And, he said, I don't play this game to be mediocre. So you can just tell the fire, the drive that this guy has. And I mean, I think he's going to be in for a big year next year.
Yeah. And going off what Felipe said, it'll be his second year in the system. I would throw Christian Kirk in that as well. One of his, most reliable pass catchers. I feel like the ceiling remains so high for him. It's going to be his third year in the league, but you look at he's 40th ranked receiver in fantasy football right now, 154 points. He had some up and downs, obviously got hurt, but I just think his second year in this offense, he'll flourish even more so. And with his connection that he already has with Murray, I think those two together, easy stackable, quarterback, receiver, if you want to go into looking ahead into next season for fantasy means.
Yeah, I mean, it's always like, I kind of view the Cardinals wide receiving core as kind of the Patriots running back core, where, they're always performing and someone is getting points, but in fantasy, you never have any idea as to which one it's going to be at any time. So, C. Kirk, I mean, great wide receiver. He's shown that chemistry with Kyler, but I mean, 3 receiving touchdowns and all 3 of them were against the Bucs this year. So it's crazy the potential that he has, and with this offense, it just depends on kind of who gets the love and when
who
in the
gets the
offense.
love. Will Larry be back to get the love? That's the question.
I mean, I hope he does. He's basically the perfect security blanket. You've heard it all season. You saw it last week in that. When Kyler scrambled and Larry finally, Larry finally like understands how Kyler plays. So he knew where to be. He knew where, he knew where to spot up, and Kyler found him. And Larry, being Larry, he did the rest. So I mean, if he comes back next season, another season under Cliff Kingsbury, get a little bit more comfortable with the system, and
he's a 33rd ranked receiver in fantasy football, 71 catches. 4 receiving touchdowns, a total of 168.9 fantasy points. So he's someone, like you could play easily in the flex and just match up to. Maybe, as, guys are off on bye, he's a definitely receiver 2 for you and going forward. So
yeah, I mean, he's just consistent. That's all it is. It's just
Father time. We hope to see you back, Larry.
Yeah, it's so crazy hearing Larry. People talk about, is he gonna retire or not? I mean, the dude led the team in catches.
Yeah, I don't.
To be talking about retirement and he leads the team in catches, it's kind of,
He's just had to, I feel like he appears as though he's had a lot of fun in this system. And just another year for him even, and, his veteran status to grow and, in this system. And he's excited for what's to come. I mean, who's not excited about what Kyler Murray can do in this offense moving forward? So
don't leave us, Larry.
What was that? Don't leave us. I mean, think about how many solid fantasy football names you can't use with Fitz anymore.
That's true.
In it. You raise your hand if you've used a Larry Fitzgerald
in the past.
I'm sure,
We're all like, raise your hand.
That's a good one.
All right, everyone. Well, it's time to sign off for this year's Fantasy Football Show. Thanks for hanging with us all season long. Best of luck to you if you're still in the fantasy football. I know it's week 17. In one of your leagues. That's crazy.
I got a bad league.
I don't like that.
Bad commish.
Players are sitting out. What are you doing?
I don't know. Well, the guy I'm playing as Lamar Jackson, so I'm actually okay with how things are shaking out. So.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Felipe, congrats again.
Champ.
Thanks, champ. There he goes.
The champ. We hope to see y'all next year. Hope you all have a wonderful new year.
Merry Fitzmas.